Well, welcome back everybody. It's Louis Boy with Brooklyn Boy Knits, and this is the Massallo Shawl knit along video number 3. Now, if you haven't seen video 1 or video 2, I'm going to ask you to hit that pause button right now. You're going to stop the video, you're going to jump to video 1 and 2 before you see this video. Today's all about blocking. This is the last video in our series for the knit along, and today I want to talk about why it's important to block it, especially since we are doing shawls that require those stitches to be visible. I've been talking throughout the knit along how our stitch definition is everything, and a major part of that has a lot to do with our blocking process. Now, I avoided blocking for several years. Yes, several years, I know. And I was afraid. I was like, I can't imagine me submerging my piece after I just finished knitting hours, days, weeks, and it scared me, it frightened me. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to submerge this thing in water and pin it down to a mat. What if I do it wrong? But I promise you it's not as bad as it seems. So today I'm going to walk you through that process. Today I am going to be using Knitter's Pride lace blocking mats. Now you don't need to go out and spend a lot of money on mats. You can use towels, you can just lay towels down. You can pin your shawl or your garment to the towels by using regular pins. But I find it better to use blocking mats. You can also use, you know, those mats that you use for children's rooms to play on top of. They connect. Well, that's what this is. These are for adults. So we're going to be using Knitter's Pride lace blocking mats, and I'm also going to be using these little guys. It's the Knitter's Pride rainbow knit blockers. They're pins. Again, you can also use T-pins, safety pins, whatever you can use to like lay out your garment. So as long as it's laying flat and it's drying to the shape that you want it to. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna get started, starting with soaking our garments, and we'll be right back. Okay, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. The first thing that I did was fill my bathroom sink up with cold water. You can also use warm water, it's fine. So you want to go ahead and fill that up. And you can also use a plastic bin or like a container of some sort. You just want to make sure that there's at least 6 inches in height. So you'll fill that up with cold water or warm water, and then I'm going to be using today the solution called Rapture. It's by KAL, and this is going to be the wash that we'll be using. Now, for this, I'm going to go ahead and use a cap full of the solution. Or, I don't know if you guys have ever been to like a Stitches event or a Vogue Knitting Live event, but you'll see these little guys pop up at a lot of shows. This is the same thing. For this, you would use a full packet of these little guys. This is the solution by Soak, but KAL also makes these little packets. So if you don't have this, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to use a solution, I guess, but I like to use a solution. This one in particular is has a little scent to it, and this one's jasmine. So I'm gonna go ahead and use a cap full of this. Now I like my garments to smell a little good, so I like using a full cap of this guy. And when you do this, I just kind of like to make sure that we get that in there into the water. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my garment. I'm gonna take my shawl. I'm gonna take my Massallo shawl, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna just soak that in there. Now, once you start submerging your piece in, I like to squeeze it just to make sure that it's really getting soaked up in there, all right? Now your garment, depending on the yarn, sometimes it'll bleed a little bit. The color will bleed. That's really normal when it comes to when we block our pieces. So don't be alarmed if you feel like, you know, you see that your garment is starting to bleed a little bit. That happens. Especially if this is your first time blocking, don't be afraid. I was one of those people that got afraid of when I saw my garment starting to bleed. So you're gonna go ahead, you're gonna let this soak for about 20 minutes at minimum. Some people, I know some people that like to soak their garments for overnight. I don't necessarily feel like you need to, but if that's, you know, if you want the reason why we're doing this is because we want the fibers to expand, right? And this is where we truly get to see our stitch definition come to life. Especially for those of you that did the eyelet row, it's really important for that. And this is why we block our shawls or our garments. We want to make sure that you know, especially if you're doing edges, we want to make sure that we bring that to life. Okay, so I'm gonna let this sit for about 20 minutes, and then we'll go back to, we'll switch over to the next part. Okay, so now that we had it soaking for about 15 to 20 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wring that. So I'm gonna first drain my water. And now it's really important that we don't wring it this way. We're gonna press, we're gonna squeeze out, I should say, the excess water. Okay. So usually what I do is I kind of like pile it all up. Now it's gonna be really heavy, and I just kind of like squeeze all that water out. Now, I made this shawl pretty big, so I'm gonna go ahead and I like to fold it usually. Again, we're not doing this. Never do that. You just want to make sure that you squeeze all that water out. See? And once you do that, the next step is we're gonna lay it out on our blocking mats. So as you can see, I already went ahead and laid out my shawl, and I started pinning it down, making sure that I spread out my eyelet rows so that they'll be visible once it all dries. So I'm gonna just go ahead and keep on pinning my garment here. And like I said, I usually like to start on the top and stretch it out and start that way. It's not really recommended to really start from the bottom. I kind of like to stretch the garment out. So making sure that this part right here is stretched out completely also. You want to make sure that this is straight. Now this is the part that was curling during our knitting at the very beginning, remember that? So you want to make sure that this is straight as possible. And that's it, guys. So once it's laid out, you have everything pinned, stretched out. Now as you can see, I had to use 2 sets of mats because it's so big, and I just wanted to make sure that I opened up those eyelet rows so you can see that I did that. So we're gonna go ahead and let that dry for overnight usually. If you have a fan, you can go ahead and do that as well. But we just want to make sure that you open up the shawl, and you'll notice that once it's dried, those stitches are gonna really come to life. Well, that's it, guys. We are done. Just let those shawls dry overnight. Give it about 24 hours for them to properly dry. Again, you know, if you want to put a fan next to it and you want to speed up that drying process, by all means go ahead and do that. I can't wait to see these shawls. I know some of you have been sending me photos. have been emailing me those photos, and they look amazing. The color choices, I hope you had fun. I know I had fun doing this and taking you along my process and my journey. Today was all about blocking, and I thought that was a little something that we all needed to see. That was part of the process, right? Blocking is all about expanding those stitches, making sure that that stitch definition comes to life. With that said, I want to thank you all once again for joining me, and I will see you all at the next video. Take care.